I've been playing Palworld a lot lately, and last night I was stumbling upon a video that I thought was very useful for Palworld as well. You know, it has a very similar topic of how I play and treat my pals, right? So let's check it out. It's called The Worst Punishments in Human History. So maybe we can learn something here to build our base even better. But I didn't say that. I didn't. So my pals lately in my base don't really work. They just spin around. They don't make babies. They don't do anything. So maybe we will have to adapt to some of, maybe we have to introduce some of these punishments. Maybe. Let's see.
Let's start with the bad and slowly work our way towards the stuff of nightmares. Number 10, the Rat Dungeon. If you were alive in London, England during the medieval period, you would have definitely heard about the Rat Dungeon. Since this punishment
Is it too loud?
struck paralyzing.
I love his art. This guy doesn't have an arm. He keeps not chopping wood. Oh my god. Not too loud? Okay, okay. I love his art style. A little louder? Okay. I'll give you a little bit louder.
Fear into the hearts of even the most hardened criminals. This was a cell that was located at the bottom of the London Tower, where prisoners were shackled and
that's a
chained
famous
in complete
place.
darkness. But here's the thing, the dungeon was connected to the nearby river and just below the river's waterline, so that when the water levels rose, all the rats that lived along the riverbed would be pushed out of their shelters and forced to swim downstream. This would of course lead the hungry and angry rats towards the entrance of the dungeon, where they would then come face to face with the prisoner. But to the unlucky prisoner, he never actually saw anything, and all he would hear were the soft scurries of the rats' feet entering the dungeon. And in a matter of minutes, these soft noises were in the hundreds and all around him. These angry and aggressive rats would then begin to take small bites from the prisoner, who had no way of defending himself. Now, he might be able to shake the rats off for a few hours, but eventually the prisoner would pass out from pure exhaustion. And
you know what this is like? I was once reading that on Reddit, like some people made a Reddit post about how to make messed up torture rooms or torture things, and one came up with like a small room, like 2 by 2 meters, or like 3 by 3, so you can lay down, but the ground is like sandpaper and it's constantly moving like a running wheel. Not fast, it's slow enough that you don't have to constantly walk, but obviously you can never like fall asleep. Because if you would at one point get pushed against the wall, and the sandpaper would, shred off your skin. I constantly think about this ever since I read that. It's messed up, and this is like the same. You have to fight off the rats, or the rats will eat you. Oh shit, a rat! By the way, there's not a single rat-like type in Palworld. Yeah, the sandpaper room. Don't tell me you also read that. Why is there no rat in Palworld? We need one. I would like if the developer could add a rat type, a legendary rat. That's what I would love.
Slept, the rats would continue to take bites from his flesh. Eventually, when he would wake up, he would discover hundreds of bites throughout his entire body. But it didn't stop there. The prisoner was left here for days or weeks.
He just accepted that. Look at his face.
On his crime. But towards the end of the medieval period, this form of punishment just got more and more deranged, eventually becoming a form of execution, where prisoners would just be thrown in the dungeon and forgotten about.
Like, not just starving, but also getting eaten. But also, I feel like a few nights like that and you're done. If you get stuck in this dark, dirty pit, getting like bitten all over by rats, you get infected everywhere. You just die. Even if you survive the rats, you will just die afterwards probably. Like what was the age, the normal age for people back then, like 30, 40, and then you would be done. And I would say like being eaten by rats is a good way to just die of an infection. As a rat Pokemon, I would like to be close to Pikachu. 30, 45, yeah, see. And imagine even if you would be like 20 or like 15 and you chopped someone's arm off and then you get eaten by the rats. How am you supposed to get like a wife if you like you're the rat scar? That's what they call you, rat boy. Maybe if there's a rat girl, you can find true love, but you know, most died from illness and yeah, I mean, or rats. Let's see, what is worse than the red room?
Number 9, the rack.
Oh, that's a classic.
This was yet another punishment that took place in the London Tower. The rack.
Wait, it's again in London? What the? 2 in a row. For 2 times? and any British people here want to explain what your people did there? I mean, I shouldn't talk like the Germans burned witches for a long time.
Was a torture device that was used in many places throughout history. This form of punishment was originally designed for getting a confession, usually from criminals, slaves, or prisoners of war. The device looked like a large ladder, but instead of secure steps, it would actually rotate like a rolling pin. You see, when a prisoner was placed on the rack, he would have his feet and wrists tied to a ratchet pulley system, where 2 legal officials would slowly tighten the ropes and locking them in place, placing an increasing amount of strain on the prisoner's shoulders, hips, knees, and elbows with every single turn. This was all done to get information, but of course, a lot of the time, the truth was not accepted as reality, and the prisoner would then begin to say whatever he believed the officials wanted to hear. Sometimes it would work, and the prisoners would be let go, while other times they would be tortured even more for lying. When the whole ordeal was over, prisoners were usually released with dislocated joints, but oftentimes they were left completely paralyzed.
But at least they are 6'1" now. At least that, so.
That was the case in England in 1447 when a 25-year-old girl named Anne Askew would be tortured on the rack for hours and hours on end and left completely paralyzed after all her joints were dislocated. She was then carried on a chair and burned alive at the stake.
Bro, what the fuck? I mean, I feel like that is unnecessary. Why would you have to torture her first? That's a common. The special treatment. Yo, dang, bigger than me. I'm 6'1". God damn it.
All this because she read and memorized scriptures from the Bible, which she preached in private to a small group of women.
What the fuck? How dare she? No, I will not make jokes about that. That is horrible. That is messed up. But also, what is going on here? What? Look at that one. What happened here? I think she came out of a rat cave. That's a rat cave survivor.
Which were the exact women she refused to name and expose during her torture. You see, during this time period, if you followed any religion other than the Catholic Church, you better not say a word to anybody, including your own husband.
Wait.
Which was the person that turned her in. Number 8, keel hauling. This brutal punishment was carried out as...
Imagine your own husband is done with your shit of talking about, oh, Jesus, blah, blah. And he snitches you out. Holy fuck, that's messed up. Oh my god. I would put her on the rack, then burn her, and he goes into the rat cave for snitching. For being a traitor. And then burn him as well.
C. On sailors who would steal or be violent towards others and would usually result in death.
That is an awful thing.
Would start with a sailor having his arms tied with a rope, then looped around the entire circumference of the ship.
You mean Christian, right? The C word is a Christian, right?
Before being tied off to his feet. The sailor would then be thrown overboard while the group of men on board
Hey,
pulled
the
on
little
the
guy
rope
can't
to
reach it.
slowly drag him around the outside of the ship, including over the keel, which is how this punishment gets its name. But a lot of the times, the sailor wouldn't even have to worry about it, since they were dead before they ever reached it. Kinda just depends on how hard the guys on the rope feel like working that day. Not only would the sailors be drowning and getting their backs and necks broken on the keel, they were also getting sliced apart like a cheese grater by all the sharp barnacles
Oh yeah, I
on
heard
the
about
outside
that
of the
before.
ship. But if by some miracle a sailor actually happens to make it all the way around the ship,
I really like the
dying,
art of this
one
video.
of three things will happen.
It's so
1,
simple.
He would be sent for round 2 and for sure be dead by then. 2, be freed and allowed back on the ship, where he would then slowly die to infections. Or 3, live the rest of his life single and being made fun of, since he was now fully covered in scars from head to toe.
That's what I said about the red guy. That would happen to the red guy as well. Nobody would want to date the red guy. What the fuck is that? That's a chin, double chin, triple chin. Dang.
Number 7, crushed by elephants.
Oh my god.
Now we are getting to the part of the list where
we can do that in Palworld, right? You know, we have, like, kinda. You know, here. We have this guy. You could do this. Maybe I will. Maybe we should write the developers, but we need to be able to punish people with this thing. We can just trample on them.
living is no longer an option. This form of punishment has been used by many countries throughout history, but was most recently used by India in the 19th century, which is really not that long ago if you really think about it. Like, your great-grandma could have witnessed one of these. What type of crimes
Wait,
would
what?
you have?
Okay, wait. It wasn't long ago?
Most recently used by India in the 19th century, which is really not that long ago if you really think about it.
So like 100 years ago.
Grandma could have witnessed one of these.
Okay.
What type of crimes would you have to commit to be crushed by an elephant, you might ask? Well, apparently if you fail to pay your taxes.
Obviously. You don't pay taxes, it's either prison or death, obvious. Of course, what else? I mean, you can, if you kill someone else, whatever, just put him to the rats or whatever. It doesn't matter. But you fuck with the money, that's it. You get the elephant.
That was good enough. And of course, stealing or being an enemy soldier was also a great way to become a tortilla. But the most disturbing case in history was when the 4th Mughal Emperor of India ordered an enormous amount of criminals to be crushed to death in a single day. Simply because he was bored and needed some entertainment. The guy who forgot to pay his taxes, crushed. The man who stole an apple from the local market, crushed. The little orphan who jaywalked across the street, crushed. The man who murdered his neighbor and added his remains to a large pot of tomato soup, then fed that soup to his family and watched them eat it from the shadows with a creepy smirk on his face. He's alright.
That sounds right.
He makes a damn good soup. There are a few ways that this public...
I feel like that is the closest thing to my playstyle in Palworld. You can ask pretty much anyone on the server I play on. I am the most unhinged, I think. I am the most cruel and unhinged player. I don't care about any of these pals. They are workforce and nothing else. One dies, get back in the box, you get replaced with a new one. Break, no break. Spear in the back, work faster. Until you die and then I replace you with another one.
Execution goes down. But one thing always stays the same. There's always a guy on top of the elephant controlling its every move. And this was very intentional, as this was meant to showcase just how amazing the ruling class were. I mean, look at them. They can control an elephant.
That's pretty huge.
Be impressed.
Yeah, that's
the first method of execution was the one that you better pray for if this was going to be your fate. Here, the criminals would have their arms tied behind their back and their heads placed on a pedestal, where it was then crushed like a grape by the elephant's foot. Now, the second method is much more cruel. The criminal would be placed flat on the floor with their arms tied behind their backs. Then the elephants would be guided to walk over the person's body, and hopefully the criminal would die on the first go. But sometimes they just end up crushing a leg or an arm, so the elephant then has to make a U-turn and try again and again and again.
This is so
final and worst
up.
way is when a highly trained elephant was guided to slowly crush the person limb
Oh,
by
that's
limb.
the higher
They would
skill cap.
first
That's the
crush the
diamond.
arms,
elo.
then the legs, and then poke holes in them
Oh
with
my
the
god,
tusk
that's master
until
rank.
eventually dealing the final blow to the head or torso. This is the
that's
more
messed up.
theatrical route that rulers like the fourth Mogul love to take, and made for a truly traumatizing experience for everyone,
Oh my
except
god.
for the fourth Mogul. He loved it.
Oh yeah, he's
Number
drooling.
6,
Oh.
impalement.
Oh
Probably
my
one of the
god.
grossest
Is this
and
TOS?
most cruel forms
Can
of
I even show
punishment on the list.
this?
This has been used by a few countries throughout history, but was most recently
I
used
was watching until like the red cave. I thought the red cave is pretty fun. I was like, maybe I can watch this on stream. It might fit, but now I feel like, is this okay to watch on Twitch?
in Egypt in the 17th century, usually against criminals that were highway robbers, grave thieves, or anyone who would try and start a rebellion. This punishment would start by having a criminal lay flat on their stomachs with their arms
Look,
tied
he has
behind
dent in
their
his head.
back. They would then be sliced open with a razor to increase the size of their back door. And as soon as that incision was made, the cut would be lathered with paste to instantly stop the blood. They would then thrust in a long wooden stake that was the width of a man's arm, which was sharply tapered on one end. They then begin to hit the
Why
wooden
is he
stake
enjoying
with the
that?
mallet, pushing it further and further in. And of course, the stake was greased up beforehand
What the
to
hell?
make this process a lot smoother. And once the stake has popped out of the criminal's shoulder, head, or mouth, they were pretty much long gone. He is then planted next to a busy road, like a Halloween decoration, to remind everyone that this is what happens when you break the law. They will be left there for the
Oh my, look at, oh, you can see it. Look at this. The kid will have, needs therapy for the rest of their life. It's over. There's nothing this kid will ever accomplish anymore. Every night he will see this. Man, I need therapy after this video. What the fuck?
entire day and remove the following morning before the body begins to stink. But wait, there's another version of this as well. You see, on some occasions, the criminals would only be impaled just deep enough to keep them in place, but not too deep that it would cause immediate death. They would do this by having stakes that had a seated position on them to prevent the person from sliding down any further. They would then be placed on a busy road where they would suffer for hours and hours, pleading to people walking by for help, until eventually succumbing to their wounds.
That's messed up.
Number 5, Poena.
No. You cannot show a picture like that and just immediately keep going. Dog, that's a dog.
Number 5, Poena.
Look at that. What is that? A monkey? Like, oh my god. This looks like fun.
Poena Culae is Latin for penalty of the sack.
Oh,
And that's
I like
exactly what it was, just a lot more terrifying and cruel. This was an exclusive punishment for anyone that would murder their own family members. This was first seen in the 2nd century
so that's for the
in Rome, but
really
would later
fucked up
be
people.
used by the Germans in the 18th.
Was? Wir haben das gemacht! Was zum Teufel? Was stimmt nicht mit uns?
Century. This all begins with a convicted murderer being placed inside a thick leather bag. But just to make sure the man isn't lonely, they would then add a dog, a rooster, a viper, and a monkey. I don't know what these animals did to deserve this, but hey, at least the evil family murderer doesn't die alone. Once all the animals are added inside the bag, it is then sewn shut, creating an almost airtight seal. Now you would think this would be horrible enough, but no, this is just the beginning. Because as soon as the bag is sewn shut, it is then tossed into the ocean. But
what the fuck? Why the dog? Bremer Stadtmusikanten. Yep. Sounds about. Oh my god. Why are we Germans so weird, man? Why?
don't worry, later on, these murderers would be given the option to either be placed inside the leather bag or be sent to perform at the Colosseum, where they can perform the act of being mauled to death in front of all of their loved ones and peers. You know, at least they had the option. Number 4, rats.
But I still don't understand why do they throw that in the ocean? What is the what exactly what is the thought process of that torture method? You put all these animals in there, and you see the tide isn't. That already is awful. Imagine you have to be like 2 days or something in this sack with like all these animals that fight each other and you. But why in the water? I mean, our fairy tales are cruel. Der Strubbelpeter, oh yeah, right. I wanna fight a bear, I don't wanna kill a dog. Yeah, that's based. I mean, if that thing gets thrown into the water, no, you will probably not survive that. I highly doubt that they will get you out of the water again. They just throw you in and you're done. Sucking at your fingers, cut them off. Yep. Yep, that is a German fairy tale for kids. Wasn't as disturbing at all when I read that in school.
This is one of the most sick punishments in all of human history, and it involves the use of rats. I will cover two of them here as they are very similar.
Rats.
The first use of this form of punishment dates back to 1568 during the 80 Years' War.
Please not Germany.
Dutch leader named Diederik Sonoy would often use this method of punishment, which involved placing a rat inside of a clay bowl, then placing it topside down on a prisoner's stomach, chest, face, or groin. Then the back of the bowl would be heated with either a torch or some coals, causing the rat to go into a full-on panic, trying to escape from the heat. And its only way out was to burrow into the human. Once inside, it would continue to chew and tear apart whatever was in its way, desperately.
It keeps going? I mean, I saw stuff like this like in movies or something, but it never happened. And the rat will crawl inside of you and
searching for a way out. Eventually, the rat finds its way out of the maze and survives. The same could not be said for the prisoner.
Fucking hell.
But the second method was much worse and was highly secretive since it was used under the guidance of the dictator Augusto Pinochet, where he held power from 1976 through 19...
Oh boy, that is fairly recently. That's 40 years ago. I hope the rat's up. I mean, the rat is probably fine. Doesn't something like that happen in Matrix? I don't... Does it? I have no idea.
1983. They called it the rectoscope.
Oh no!
And I'm sure you have already figured out where this is going.
Oh my god, not again!
Yes, it's exactly what you think.
They would
place a tube on a prisoner's back door, then insert a rat inside.
What is wrong with these people? What is the obsession with putting things in someone's ass and then put rats in it? What is with all the rats? It's always rats! And always the ass! What is going on here? Thank God it's not in German this time.
Of the tube. The rat would then begin to burrow its way in. These people were so sick that they actually expected the prisoners to answer questions while this was going on. Eventually, the rat would find its way in and begin to move forward to find its way out. Nobody really knows how many people died from this punishment, but we do know that a ton of people went missing when this dictator was in charge.
No, it's not every home, please.
Gibbeting. The last known use was in the early 1900s in Afghanistan. This all came to light in 1921 when the National Geographic published this image in their magazine. This was also used in the United States from time to time during the 17th and 18th century.
So now finally the Americans do some shit.
Massachusetts, where a few pirates were hung at the Boston Harbor, which served as a warning to any sailors that were approaching
But what is with the cage?
Now let's talk about England, since they love this form of punishment so much.
Bates, are you still around? Can you explain that? Bates? What is wrong with England? What is wrong with the British people? What is going on over there? Why you guys invent all these fucked up torture methods? And what's going on?
England, this was used on traitors, murderers, pirates, and thieves.
Not the pirates.
After the year 1752, the Murder Act was passed, which required that all convicted murderers must be put to death by being publicly dissected or by gibbeting of some sort. And over 134 confirmed people met this fate. The most common form of gibbeting were actually cages, and they looked like this. It was an all-steel cage that was shaped tightly to the form of a human body, which was so tight that it would not allow the person inside to move. They were then hung 30 feet or more off the floor, usually on a public road or water hole, to ensure that the most amount of people could witness this monstrosity. But I could only assume this was more annoying than anything, since every time you get thirsty and needed to fill up your container of water, you would have to deal with the dying man begging you for a sip. But the annoyance and torture of the public didn't stop there, because after the criminals would die in the cages, the body would be left inside to rot for years and years on end, with the locals complaining that the smell of death was so pungent that they couldn't even sleep at night. There's even been reports that some human remains stayed inside of these cages for over 20 years before a government official would finally remember to clean it out. Number 2.
Yeah, who would have guessed, like, dead bodies all over the town might not be the nicest decoration. Huh. I mean, could have guessed that before. But hey, what do I know?
Scaphism.
What the fuck? Yo, thank you for the prime. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a little bit weird having that during this video. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you. Did I say it right this time, or did I? Should be right. Anyways, what was this picture? I'm afraid to go back.
Ancient Persian Empire on anyone that would be convicted of murder. First, the criminal would be placed inside of a boat on their backs and tied down.
Yeah.
The boat had 4 holes cut out so that the person's arms and legs.
Perhaps you're getting to sleep. Oh, but perfect.
Would be outside of the boat and in the water. They were then force-fed large quantities of honey and milk until their stomachs were visibly full. They would then proceed to lather their entire body with the milk and honey as well. After all these steps were completed, he was then pushed out to the middle of the lake where he was completely exposed to the heat of the sun. But the sun would soon become the least of his worries. You see, the reason they fed him milk and honey was not because it was a great last meal, but because this combination causes the person to get extreme diarrhea, which mixed with the sweet honey attracts rodents, bugs, wasps.
It's the fucking rats again.
Bees, flies, and whatever other animals live near the lake. After being tormented by the animals throughout the entire night, you would think that the daytime maybe gets a little better.
I don't see how this can get better.
Rises the following day, the person inside of the boat gets another gigantic meal of milk and honey and an additional lathering. This would be done on a daily basis to prolong the punishment for as long as possible. It was also well documented that the rodents would continuously attempt to burrow inside of the person through their back door. They were
oh my god, what is going on with all these rats trying to get into holes, into the people? What the fuck, man? Why did I watch this? this is just number 2! There's still one more that is even worse. These rats are weird.
Start on their next meal. A writer named John Sonaris wrote in great detail about one of these incidents. He would go on to say that it was one of the most horrid and cruel forms of punishment, since it was terribly long and seemed to have no end in sight. He wrote about a man who survived for an entire 17 days before he finally died from his wounds. Apparently, the man spent his last few days with his entire face completely covered with wasps, and his flesh rotting away, filled with swarms of parasites and worms, all while being covered in his own filth. Number 1, the oubliette. Oubliette simply means to forget in French. This was a punishment that was used in many places throughout history, including in the London Tower.
Nah! What the fuck? It's the London Tower again. That thing still stands, right? It's still there. I wonder what they do there.
Which had a small and confined room called Little Ease. Not only was this room pitch black, it was also so small that prisoners could not sit, stand, or lay down while inside it. And they would be left in this uncomfortable position for days on end. One of the most famous oubliettes is not the one in the London Tower, but in the neighboring district of Warwick. Inside of Warwick Castle,
League of Legends?
Here, deep underground in the castle's dungeons, is a very small and narrow cell, completely made of stone, which has a metal door to close it shut. Prisoners were tossed inside of the cell and forgotten about, as the name implies.
No.
The prisoner would just have to sit there and wait for their inevitable death, which usually came in a few days from dehydration or starvation.
My God.
Now, of course, this would be the best case scenario, because in reality, most of the time there would already be a rotting corpse inside of the cell to keep the new prisoner company. The previous occupier of the cell would serve as a daily reminder of his upcoming fate, but that's not the only companions that he will have.
Don't
Since
tell
the
me
underground
No! 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 Fuck! It's the rats again!
dungeons are completely infested with rats that have developed a taste for human flesh.
Oh my
But wait,
God.
there's more. These oubliettes existed in many of the castles throughout Europe, and in recent
It's not good
times,
torture
they have actually
without
discovered
rats.
these dungeons with dozens, if not hundreds, of human remains inside of it, as proof that they were hardly ever cleaned, like in Leap Castle of Ireland.
So wait, they have these catacombs like
These
under
oubliettes existed in many of the castles throughout Europe, and in recent times they have actually discovered these dungeons with dozens, if not hundreds, of human remains inside of it, as proof that they were
so they just threw them all in one cave? Oh my
hardly ever cleaned. Like in Leap Castle of Ireland, where in 1900, during the castle's renovation, a worker found a small opening behind a wall inside of the chapel. This hole had an 8-foot drop that led to a large oubliette, and what the worker found inside shocked him, since it was filled with so many skeletons that they needed multiple cartloads to clear it all out. But just when you think the section is over, it just keeps on giving. You see, there's been many stories of men who have been placed inside one of these dungeons and kept alive for years and years on end, surviving off crumbs of food and minimal amounts of water, prolonging their inevitable demise for as long as humanly possible. These cells were sometimes even placed on ground level so they can hear the voices and laughter of the people outside. An experience that they will never get again in this lifetime.
Bro. Holy shit. It's so... Why is that? Oh my... maybe I understand Mina's fear of rats now. Rats are unhinged. Yeah, good night. This was... I hope this video was perfect for you to get, you know, ready for bed and ready to sleep. I hope you have a great night. Let me... Oh yeah, hungry. Of course. Yeah, that's also what I think about after all that stuff. Right now, I kind of feel more like this guy here. That's more like how I feel about this. Oh boy. But how many rats? So the first one? Rat. It's the rat dungeon, right? The rag didn't. That was burning. Keelhole. No. No. Elephant's not. Impaling. No. Leather sack. No. Here. Rat bowl. 2. 3. 4. So 4 out of 10 had rats.
And there would already...
Yeah. I mean... Awesome. And this guy has even more videos about this. The most terrifying cults to ever exist. That is interesting. We will put that into the watch later. But not today. Deadliest food. Oh my. But we will give him a sub and a like. Check him out. And I will try to forget what I just saw. But maybe we can apply some of this stuff to Palworld. What we could use the human cage. I think there's like a hanging trap or something in Palworld, so we might be able to do this. What else could we do? Like this. Maybe we could buy oubliette, like a dungeon where we just throw them in. That could work. That isn't working. The rag probably not working. Red dungeon is pretty much the same, but you know, now that I think about it. Oh, Doug Evil, yo, what up? Hello, hello. I think we're customizable. I mean, the red dungeon and the oubliette are pretty similar if you think about it. But I would say this one is a little bit worse. But functionally, they are the same. But it's more like this is the economy class. And this is business class. Because you see you have all this open space will get eaten. In this one you are just in this tiny little thing. So pretty much these two are the same. Anyways, let's move on. Alright, that's it for this video. I will see you in the next. Hopefully it will not be as rat-filled as this one. Bye-bye!